This video took 9 months to produce. A total of 700 minutes. A deep analysis of the classic Taoist text, the Tao Te Ching, for you. It covers the origin of all things, the method of self-cultivation and the strategy of governing the country. Take you through the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching in one go. Dao Ku Dao, extraordinary Dao. Name can be named, non-named. The essence of this sentence is Laozi's reflection on the way humans perceive things. Human beings are accustomed to understanding the world through speech and naming. But this approach is precisely the obstacle to recognizing ultimate truth. Director of the Global Elder Studies Center at Nankai University. Authoritative calculation released by Time Asia. As of July 2023, the translation of the Tao Te Ching has covered 97 languages. Derived a total of 2051 translations in various languages. Its influence, not limited to the land of China. Not limited to the land of China. More globally, promoted a large number of Taoist academic research institutions. I was amazed. The charm of the Tao Te Ching is not limited to considering the field of philosophy as a research area. Its profound ideological system is like a murmuring stream, penetrating in various fields such as literature, art, politics, and so on, inspiring infinite vitality and dynamism. However, the Tao Te Ching is like a mysterious treasure chamber. Each chapter is like a treasure chest hiding profound mysteries, tightly sealing endless true wisdom. Interpreting this ancient book is like exploring this mist-shrouded treasure. One must not only open the heavy door of the chamber, but also find the key to each treasure chest one by one, uncovering the secrets they contain. But for most people, they have already strayed from the path and lost their way on the journey of seeking treasure. Others, unable to find the treasure, pick up some dainty droppings by the roadside and take them as precious gems. Throughout history, there has been only one person who not only pushed open the door of the chamber effortlessly, but also opened all the treasure chests as easily as taking something out of a pocket. He is Huanzi. Therefore, in 2023, I spent a whole year trying to peek into the path leading to the treasure with you from Huanzi's stories. But all I saw was a note left by Huanzi, which read, "After me, no one in 10,000 generations may achieve such a feat again." After writing this note, Huanzi felt so lonely and bored that he rose up suddenly, passed through the ceiling of the chamber, soared into the sky and drifted away. Indeed, there has been no second Huanzi since then. But even if one cannot be as free and insightful as Huanzi, and can only open some of the treasure chests to glimpse a corner of them, they can still be revered as extraordinary. Guan Yinzi is one of them. He entered the chamber, opened the treasure chest of value ing purity, emphasizing holding pure qi, and was honored by Taoism as the true lord of literary origin. Han Feizi also broke into the chamber. He was well versed in the art of kingship. As soon as he entered, his eyes lit up, thinking he had obtained the essence. He grabbed a few handfuls casually, feeling that it was enough for him. He was not very interested in opening all the chests. Han Feizi passed down the art of kingship and hegemony to later generations, becoming a great master of legalism. Confucius is another important figure. Although he could not open all the treasure chests as easily as Huanzi, he forced open the door of a chamber with his perseverance and wisdom. After drawing the needed true wisdom from the treasure chests of the Jing, he left the highland use these treasures to assist himself in fulfilling his great cause of reforming the world. The way of inner sageliness and outer kingship inherited by Confucius is precisely the embodiment of the spirit and ideas in the Tao Te Ching. Without such inner cultivation and outer practice, Confucianism would lose its soul. On the surface, Laozi as Taoist thought emphasizes aligning with heaven. Confucianism emphasizes aligning with humans, and the legalist thought of Guangsheng, Shangyang Sheng Buhai, and Han Fei emphasizes aligning with the world. But in fact, the three schools share a common origin and are intertwined with each other. Understanding the Tao Te Ching enables one to align with heaven, humans, and the world. Next, we will formally talk about the Tao Te Ching. Some people may ask, which version of the Tao Te Ching are we discussing? Which version is the correct one? It is true that many people online deliberately obscure the truth, overemphasizing version differences with conspiracy theories. But in fact, while versions are important, they are not the most crucial. One cannot study Taoism with a scientific mindset, getting bogged down in versions and trivial details. That is the work of archaeologists. For ordinary people like us, we should focus on grasping the overall essence, understanding the past through the past, aiding heaven through heaven, connecting with the way of the ancient sages, and bridging the gap between heaven and humans. The goal is to enable people to return to heaven and the Tao, thereby achieving personal peace, family harmony, and societal stability. Therefore, we will directly start with the most widely circulated version. Today we will talk about Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is the general outline of the entire book, expounding the Taoist cosmology and the core principles. First, let's read the original text. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Nameless, it is the origin of heaven and earth. Named, it is the mother of all things. Therefore, always be free from desire to perceive its subtlety. Always have desire to observe its manifestations. These two emerge from the same source but bear different names. Both are profound and more profound. They are the gateway to all mysteries. As we all know, the opening line of the Tao Te Ching is the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The first Tao here refers to the eternal Tao, Chang Dao, while the second Tao is a noun used as a verb, meaning to grasp, apply directly, or to speak and describe. This sentence tells us that the Tao that can be grasped and spoken is not the eternal Tao itself. But the difficulty lies in the meaning behind this sentence. First, what is the eternal Tao? Second, what is the speakable Tao? In other words, what are the different levels of meaning of the Tao mentioned in the book? The core concept of Tao appears more than 70 times in the 5,000-character Tao Te Ching. In summary, in different contexts and levels, the meaning of Tao can be divided into three levels. First, the eternal Tao, Chang Dao. It is the root and origin of the universe creation. Eternal Chang nurtures the formless Wu, non-being, which in turn gives birth to the tangible You, being, and You further evolves into all things. Here, all things include the entire universe and nature. As the first cause, the eternal Tao is unchanging and the cornerstone of the universe's existence. Second, the heavenly Tao, Tian Dao. It reveals the laws governing the operation of heaven and earth. For example, heavenly Tao is impartial. It always is the virtues mentioned in the Tao Te Ching. The heavenly Tao here refers to natural laws and cosmic principles. Many people only understand the Tao at this level, but in fact, this is only one of its multiple connotations, overemphasizing the Tao's nature as cosmic laws and natural principles may overlook its other more profound meanings. Third, the human Tao, Ren Dao. It explores the relationship between humans and the Tao. Discussions in the book on how humans recognize, align with and attain the Tao, as well as Wu Dao, lack of Tao, and Biu Dao, going against the Tao, all unfold at this level. The human Tao reflects humans' cognition, pursuit and practice of the Tao, serving as a bridge between the Tao and human social life. These three meanings are both distinct and closely connected. The formless, chaotic eternal Tao as the origin of the universe manifests as the natural law-based heaven Ly, Tao after the birth of heaven and earth, and the natural law-based heaven Ly Tao, when implemented in human social life, takes the form of the human Tao as the laws of the world. Conversely, the human Tao as the laws of the world embodies the natural law-based Tao, and the natural law-based Tao reflects the eternal Tao as the origin of the universe. In Lao Tzu's writing, the same character Tao has slightly different meanings in different contexts, but they cannot be completely separated, for these meanings are inherently closely related. In addition to these three connotations, the Tao in the Tao Te Ching sometimes serves as a tool for speech and description, but this usage is not on par with the three connotations, so it is not listed separately here. Among these three levels of meaning, the most difficult to understand is the eternal Tao, for it is unspeakable, indescribable, and cannot be directly applied. So why does the eternal Tao have such characteristics? Let's continue reading. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. In this sentence, the character name also appears 3 times, and in different contexts. It has 3 meanings: nameless, Wu Ming, named, Yu Ming, and nomenclature, Ming. The first meaning is nameless, Wu Ming. It refers to a pure state of information. In this state, things have no specific shape or form, so they cannot be described in words. Nameless is like an eternal information pool, formless and shapeless, yet it can differentiate into all things without being depleted. This eternal name is also called Changming, eternal name. The second meaning is named, Yu Ming. It refers to information transformed into energy, which further forms matter with mass and shape. In this process, the essence of things begins to take concrete forms that can be perceived and described by humans. Named is the tangible existence of all things. It is the manifestation of nameless information, and the source of the myriad changes in the universe. The third meaning is nomenclature, Ming. It refers to the fact that due to differences in information coding, things have distinct characteristics in expression, and these differences serve as the sole identity for distinguishing each other. Nomenclature is the way humans classify and cognize things. It is the carrier of language and culture, reflecting humans' understanding and grasp of the world. The 3 characteristics are nameless, formless, shapeless, indescribable, and unnameable make things in this state transcend the scope of conventional cognition, unable to be described by conventional language and images. If a name can be named, and the thing can be shaped and described, then it is no longer the eternal nameless, but the limited named, nameless. It is the origin of heaven and earth. Named, it is the mother of all things. This sentence is a high summary of the Taoist cosmology. Heaven and earth refer to the macrocosm, and all things generally refer to everything in the universe. How did the universe come into being? There are roughly the following explanations due to the profundity of the Tao. The first type is the most primitive, totemic cosmology. In ancient times, people's knowledge was limited regarding the origin of the universe. They could only describe it with imagination and totems. For example, in ancient Egyptian mythology, the universe was said to be born from a chaotic body of water called Nun. An small mountain floated on this water, on which perched agent divine, bird called Banyu. When Banyu sang, it awakened the sun god Ra, thus initiating the process of cosmic creation. This totemic explanation is full of mystery and symbolism. It attempts to explain the origin of the universe with limited natural elements and imagination. The second type is the mythological, anthropomorphic cosmology. With the development of human civilization, more complex mythological and religious explanations emerge. Different cultures and religions have their own unique interpretations of the origin of the universe. For example, in ancient Greek mythology, Zeus was the king of the gods and the ruler of the universe. He ruled over the sky, thunder and fate, living on Mount Olympus with other gods. Zeus' will and power were depicted as the origin of the universe and the driving force of its operation. These mythological explanations closely link the origin of the universe with the power and will of the gods, showing ancient people's worship and imagination of mysterious forces. The third type is the modern scientific cosmology. With the rise and development of science, people began to attempt to explore the origin of the universe in a more rational and scientific way. By observing and studying stars, planets, and the evolutionary process of the universe, scientists have proposed various hypotheses and theories. Among them, the most famous is the Big Bang theory. It holds that the universe originated from an extremely high temperature and high density state, and then underwent a process of rapid expansion and evolution, forming the universe we see today. This theory has gained widespread recognition and support because it can explain many observational facts and phenomena. For example, the discovery of cosmic microwave background radiation provided strong evidence for the Big Bang theory, and modern observational tools such as the Hubble Space Telescope have revealed a deeper and broader picture of the universe. However, have the problems really been completely solved? Not at all. The scientific cosmology also has some unsolvable questions. For example, how to understand and find the first cause of the universe? Can the self-consistency and completeness of the scientific theoretical system be achieved simultaneously? Can particles be divided infinitely? If fundamental particles exist, what is their internal structure? Where did the energy at the starting point of the Big Bang come from? These questions indicate that the scientific cosmology is far from being the final completed version. So, is there a perfect version that can solve all problems once and for all? Or is it destined that human cosmology can only continue to upgrade, and every once in a while, we will find that the previous version has irreparable flaws? Well, now let's return to the Tao Te Ching. The Tao is a complete cosmology. The Tao is the first cause. The Tao gives birth to Wu A Promo Chi, pure energy formless and shapeless, hence nameless. Wu gives birth to the initial Yu, tangible and formless, thus can be named. Yu gives birth to all things, and all things flourish in diverse forms, each bearing its own name. This is by far the most complete cosmology, almost impeccable. But because the Tao is invisible, inaudible and intangible, many ignorant people say, since it cannot be seen, heard or traced, how can we prove its existence? This is a typical scientific mindset, completely unrelated to philosophy and Taoism. The foundation of science is experimentation. It requires proving feasibility through experiments. But the scope of science is limited to visible matter and those with radiation. However, among all matter, radiating matter is negligible. The foundation of philosophy is logic. It requires being coherent through language and logic. But this is only self-consistent within the framework of human language and thinking. The Taoist ideal logical system transcends this limitation, attempting to understand the essence of the world from a deeper perspective. The Tao spoken by Lao Tzu cannot be expressed in words nor elaborated through logical reasoning. Since the Tao is unspeakable, indescribable and unexplorable. How can we truly attain the great Tao? The answer is to restrict desires and return to simplicity, only needing to take a few steps forward. Therefore, the foundation of Taoism is spiritual communication uniting with the Tao. Specifically, how to unite with the Tao. Both the Tao Te Ching and Zhuangzi's works contain relevant descriptions. We talked about Zhuangzi earlier, and we will further explore from the Tao Te Ching later. In fact, we find that these cosmologies do not evolve in chronological order, but are completely limited by the intelligence of different humans. Even in the 21st century with advanced technology, many ethnic groups in the world still firmly believe in totemic cosmology, and mythological anthropomorphic cosmologies, even more prevalent. As for scientific cosmology, from Einstein and Newton to modern Yang Xiongning, they all believed in the existence of a creator in their later years. Their descriptions of the creator are very close to Laozi's description of the Tao. They seem mad to think that I perceive the existence of the Tao. Is there a path to deeply perceive it? Laozi gave the answer, but few people truly understand it. Let's look at the original text. Therefore, always be free from desire to perceive its su biti ledi. Always have desire to observe its manifestations. This sentence is Laozi's key formula for humans to perceive the great Tao. But precise ly for the interpretation of this key sentence, there have been two completely different punctuations in history, with entirely different meanings, leading to great controversy. The mainstream punctuation is, therefore always be free from desire to perceive its subtlety. Always have desire to observe its manifestations. This punctuation roughly means, only when eliminating desires can we reveal the mystery of the origin of all things. Only when maintaining desires can we observe the signs of the generation of all things. In other words, being free from desire means the absence of human subjective will. Only when people do not enter any subjectively can we observe the original state of all things, that is, being free from desire to perceive its su biti ledi. Having desire to observe its manifestations means, only when people enter any subjectively can we examine the signs of the generation of all things, such as scientific experiments. This seems plausible, but it overlooks one point. Where do so-called desires come from? They do not arise from the human heart itself, but are reflected by all things after the emergence of named. It is like hearing the sound of waves because you are standing by the sea. Forcing yourself to block your hearing and vision to avoid the sound of waves is completely backwards. The correct approach is to return to a place without the sea, and the sound of waves will naturally disappear. Therefore, the correct punctuation of this sentence should be, therefore, always be free from desire to perceive its su biti ledi. Always have desire to observe its manifestations. In this way, the meaning becomes, we can perceive the mystery of the origin of all things from Wu, non-being. We can discover the initial clues of all things from you, being. Is this interpretation correct? In fact, Zhuangzi's works describe things always being free from desire to perceive its su biti ledi many times. For example, in Qi Wu Luan, Discourse on Equalizing Things, Nan Guozi Qi Saturday leaning on a mat, tilting his head and slowly exhaling towards the sky. His appearance of being absent-minded was as if his spirit had left his body, entering a state of forgetting himself. His disciple Yan Qingziyu stood before him and said, "What's wrong with you? It is true that the body can be made like a white red tree, but can the spirit and mind also be made like dead ashes? Your sitting posture today is very different from before." Ziqi replied, "Yan, you ask a good question. Today ye have forgotten the external self. Do you know, you have heard the human music, run lai, but not the earthly music, delay. Even if you have heard the earthly music, you have not heard the heavenly music, tian lai. This is the scene where Nan Guo Zi Qi entered the state of Wu, non-being, through Zuowan, sitting forgetting, and thus heard the heaven ly music. In addition, in Wang Zi's Ren Jian Shi, in the world of humans, Confucius said to Yan Hui, if you want to be unified, first listen with your ears, then listen with your mind, then listen with your mind, and finally listen with qi. Ears are limited to hearing. The mind is limited to comprehension. Qi is empty and receptive to all things. Only the Tao is utter. Ly empty emptiness is the heart fasting. Zin Zai. This is evidence of always being free from desire to pursue its subitility. Wu, non-being, gives birth to heaven and earth. You, being, gives birth to all things. After the birth of heaven, earth and all things, what should humans do? Similarly, perceive the subitility of the macrocosm. Observe the manifestations of all things. It can be seen that Lao Tzu did not advocate opposition between humans and nature, nor did he advocate deliberate pursuit of beauty in the face of all things. The distinction between being free from desire and having desire reflects Lao Tzu's thought on treating desires. Observing Wu through Wu and You through You is the appropriate approach, drawing away from the metaphysical Wu and You and descending into people's real lives. How should we treat desires? The general principle is still to observe Wu through Wu and You through You. Do not regard desires as a flood or beast having. Desires allows us to examine all things, nor do we advocate being swallowed by desires. Being free from desire reveals the subitility. There are many flowers blooming in the garden. If you ask Lao Tzu, should I look at those flowers or not? Lao Tzu would reply, look if you want. Don't look if you don't. If you then ask, what if you have more and more desires after looking too much? Lao Tzu would say, then don't return to yourself. After returning to yourself, you may feel lonely after a long time and want to look at those flowers again. What to do? Lao Tzu would say, go ahead and look if you want. I just look too. Those flowers are really beautiful. Some people say, when you look at the flowers, they exist. When you don't look at them, they perish. Is this true? Lao Tzu would say, no, observing You through You, the flowers exist. Observing You through Wu, you lose what you observe. Losing what you observe, you lose the subtlety. Losing the manifestations, you lose both. Thus, you completely abandon the Tao. Therefore, at the end of chapter 1, Lao Tzu emphasizes, these two emerge from the same source but bear different names. Both are profound, profound and more profound. They are the gateway to all mysteries. These two, Wu and You, both originate from the Tao and derive from it. Although they manifest in different forms, they share the same origin. Yan, profound, refers to the unfathomable realm. Because it is extremely deep, it seems to be shrouded in profound black when observed. Both Wu and You are immersed in this impenetrable depth, hence joint Ly called Xian. How deep are they? Deeper than any imaginable depth. Only in the deepest place can we experience the infinite subitility of the Tao, and witness the process of Tao generates one. One generates two, two generates three, three generates all things. Lao Tzu witnessed all this and recorded it. The fundamental reason why Lao Tzu is great is that the Tao Te Ching is the only hope for humans to regain their spiritual nature after moving away from the great Tao. It is like a fish leaving the water before perishing. Heaven pities it, and as the end as rain. The rain falls from the sky. Drinking a little can save life. Drinking more can achieve longevity. Jumping into it and swimming with the current. You return to the vast ocean, wandering free out wide in the rivers and seas. Well, that's all for today's content. If you like it, please let me know, and I will continue to update. If Taoist way, non-action, is truly great wisdom, then why are we always taught to strive, to struggle and to achieve something? Have we misunderstood Laozi's original meaning? Or is there a problem with the operating logic of the real world? We often define someone or something as beautiful or ugly, good or evil. But are these definitions really absolute and unchanging? Or are they just limitations of our subjective cognition? Hello everyone. Today we will learn Chapter 2 of the Tao Te Ching. This chapter first puts forward several very important concepts: beauty, goodness, and non-action. But precise or wide interpretations of these important concepts are varied to the ing people. Let us first look at the first sentence. When the whole world recognizes beauty as beauty, ugliness arises. When everyone recognizes goodness as goodness, badness arises. The interpretation of this sentence is the most important and controversial in this chapter. First, let's look at the two mainstream interpretations in history. The first is the relativistic interpretation. This interpretation holds that when the whole world recognizes what beauty is, the concept of eugeliness also emerges. Similarly, when people all recognize what goodness is, the concept of badness, that is, not goodness, also arises. Therefore, beauty and ugliness, goodness and badness do not exist absolutely, but are interdependent and relative. The second is the critical interpretation. This interpretation is based on the Silk manuscript version of the Laozi, version A. When the whole world recognizes beauty as beauty, badness arises. When everyone recognizes goodness as goodness, not goodness arises. Compared with other versions, it only lacks one character Yi, but the meaning is completely different. It becomes, when beauty exists as a standard, and everyone pursues this standard of beauty or goodness, it will make the entire society extremely utilitarian, leading to the opposite result, badness or not goodness. At this point, I believe many people are getting confused. What is the original meaning? Comparing within the same dimension is not only difficult to distinguish, but also tedious to complicate the problem. To trace the origin, let's invite Guangzi, who understood Laozi best, to introduce it to us. Theories are too abstract, so Chuanzi always likes to tell stories and give examples. Regarding beauty and goodness, he said this in Qi Wu Luan. People who sleep in damp places will suffer from waist pain, even becoming paraplegic. Do loaches feel the same? People who lie in tall trees will be terrified, and unsure do apes feel the same? Between humans, loaches, and apes, who truly understands the standard of habitation? Humans eat the meat of livestock. Elk eat grass. Centipedes eat small snakes. Owls and crows like to eat mice. Among humans, elk, centipedes, owls, and crows, who truly understands the real delicacy? Apes take female apes as mates. Deer mate with deer. Loaches copulate with fish. Mao Cheng and Xi Shi were praised as beauties by people. But when fish saw them, they dived deep into the water. When birds saw them, they flew high into the sky. When deer saw them, they fled quickly with their hooves. Among humans, fish, birds, and deer, who truly understands the real beauty in the world? From the story, we can see that Zhuangzi believed, observing the world from the perspective of human. Tao, Ren Dou, gives rise to good and evil, beauty and ugliness, right and wrong. To make people pursue goodness and beauty, one must artificially create a set of behavioral norms to educate the people. But from the perspective of heavenly Tao, Tian Dao, all things are equal and return to their proper places. There is no need for education at all. Indeed, none of the pre-Qing Taoist classics were written to educate the people. Therefore, from a Taoist perspective, the true meaning of Lao Tzu's sentence when the whole world recognizes beauty as beauty, badness arises, the human Tao adhere and as appearance with rituals and restricts people with complex etiquette, using this to educate the world and taking this kind of beauty as beauty. However, the human Tao is not the true Tao, it harms the Tao with rituals and heaven with human will. Hence badness arises. Why does he say when everyone recognizes goodness as goodness, not goodness arises? Because when the human Tao prevails in the world, people all regard following rituals as goodness. However, rituals are not the heavenly Tao, and following rituals is not following heaven. How can this be called goodness? Hence not goodness arises. At this point, some people may say, why say that artificially formulated standards of beauty and goodness harm the Tao with rituals and heaven with human will? Let's see what Kuan-Zi said in Gang Sen Chu. Gang Sen Chu said to his disciple, Yao and Shen's distinction between good and evil, noble and humble is like random ly destroying a well-built garden wall to plant useless wormwood, combing individual hairs and counting grains to cook, haggling over trivial matters. How can this benefit the world? Promoting virtuous people will make people harm each other. Using intelligent people will make people deceive each other. These practices are not enough to bring benefits to the people. People have always been eager to pursue self-interest. For self-interest, some sons kill their fathers, and some ministers kill their monarchs, robbing people in broad daylight and breaking into others' walls in the open. Little you, the root cause of the world's great chaos must have originated in the era of Yao and Shen, and its legacy will surely remain for thousands of years. Thousands of years later, there will still be people killing each other. Therefore, the correct approach is to abandon the human Tao, return to the heavenly Tao. Lining with the heavenly Tao is the ultimate beauty and goodness. As Kuan-Zi said, heaven and earth possess great beauty but do not speak of it. The four seasons follow clear laws but do not discuss them. All things have inherent principles but do not explain them. Since we need to return to the heavenly Tao, what are beauty and goodness from the perspective of the heavenly Tao? Lao Tzu then said, therefore, being and non-being generate each other. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short shape each other. High and low incline towards each other. Sounds and tones harmonize with each other. Front and back follow each other. This is eternal. From the perspective of the heavenly Tao, being and non-being generate each other. Non-being generates being. Being generates all things and all things. After growing, aging and dying, return to non-being. Circulating endlessly under such laws, there is no absolute difficulty or ease. Difficulty and ease are only relative to each other. Hence difficult and easy complement each other. There is no absolute long or short. Long is only long when compared to something shorter, and short is only short when compared to something longer. Hence long and short shape each other. There is no absolute high or low. There is something higher than high and lower than low, and only through mutual reference is there a distinction between high and low. Hence high and low incline towards each other. The five notes, gong, shang, jiao, jiu, generate melodies. Silk, bamboo, metal, stone, clay, leather. With sounds cannot exist without tones, nor tones without sounds. Sounds and tones harmonize to form music. Hence sounds and tones harmonize with each other. There is no absolute front or back. Only through mutual reference among all things does a front-back relationship exist. Hence front and back follow each other. The many parallel structures in this passage all elaborate on one truth. All things complement each other, and observation results depend on the frame of Reference. There is no constant and universal frame of reference, only eternal change. On the surface, the beauty and goodness of the human Tao have fixed standards, but in reality, these standards are artificial and arbitrary. Similarly, on the surface, the generation of being and non-being in the heaven Ly Tao is changing, but precise Ly this change is endless and eternal. Therefore, the beauty and goodness of the heaven Ly Tao lie in nature. All things in nature grow according to their own laws, needing no human intervention. Humans should conform to nature, follow the laws of all things' growth, not force or destroy, and let everything return to nature. This is the beauty of the heaven Ly Tao. Now that we have explained the principle, the key question is, what should we do? Laozi said, therefore, the sage engages in non-action, wu wei, and practices teaching without words. In this passage, the term wu wei, non-action, appears for the first time in the Tao Te Ching. When most people talk about Taoism, they mention their advocacy of Qingjing wu wei, pure tranquility and non-action. But what exactly does wu wei mean? Is it really like some people think, lazing around and do nothing to live a happy life? This is a great misunderstanding. We can understand it by combining it with another key word in the book, sage. A closer look reveals that whenever words like Qingjing wu wei appear in the Tao Te Ching, the context refers to sages and princes. According to Laozi's setting, the target readers of the Tao Te Ching are rulers. Hence, the Tao Te Ching is the study of sage kings. The wei, action, in Laozi as wu wei, refers to governing the state. Wu wei does not mean that monarchs do nothing, but that they do not govern the state, relying on artificially formulated rules, but instead follow the natural laws of the heaven. Ly Tao. Monarchs should establish the education of the heaven Ly Tao's nature, assist the heavenly Tao, and let the world develop according to natural laws. In this way, even though monarchs do not intervene artificially, the heavenly Tao is actually functioning, and everything is achieved naturally. This is the true meaning of wu wei. The sage king as wu wei is to enable the people to act naturally and achieve their potential by following heaven. Therefore, many people read the Tao Te Ching and think that Laozi teaches the people to also practice wu wei, thus becoming inactive. This is a serious misunderstanding of the Tao Te Ching. As ordinary people, the wisdom we should gain from the Tao Te Ching is to remember the eternal principles, love life with passion, follow our pure and innocent nature like a child, work diligently, and strive for self-improvement. Then, how to help the people maintain this pure nature? Laozi believed that the key lies in the sage king, not teaching deviant and heretical doctrines. Thus the people will not deviate from the natural Tao. Therefore, monarchs must always be vigilant, resolutely eliminate any heresies that may mislead the people, to ensure that they can maintain their innocent and simple nature and live in harmony with nature. This is the essence of teaching without words. Although wu wei governance and teaching without words sound simple, they are actually the most difficult governance methods to practice, because they require rulers to possess profound and enduring patience and compassion, always caring for the people's well-being like loving their own children, fearing that they will suffer any harm. Once heresies or things harmful to the people are discovered, they must be prohibited and eliminated immediately. Only by unremitting Ly protecting the people from pollution and harm for a long time can they always maintain their innocent and simple nature, and the ideal state of wu wei governance and teaching without words can be maintained. At the end of chapter 2, Laozi said, all things arise, but he does not initiate them. He gives birth, but does not possess them. He acts, but does not rely on his achievements. He accomplishes his work but does not claim credit. Because he does not claim credit, his achievements endure. Does not initiate, then refers to teaching, without words. Simply put, being and non-being generate and interact with each other. All things flourish endlessly, and the heaven ly Tao does not arbitrarily ly enter. When so the sage king should not arbitrarily ly intervene in governing the world, allowing the people to lie naturally. He gives birth but does not possess them. Heaven and earth give birth to all things, but do not regard all things as their private property. Therefore, the sage king should not take the world as his own when governing, but should benefit the world, bless the people without claiming credit. He acts but does not rely on his achievements. The sage king governs the world by assisting the heaven ly Tao, not taking the credit of heaven as his own. He accomplishes his work but does not claim credit. The heavenly Tao nurtures the people, and the people lie naturally, work diligently, and live in prosperity and peace. These are all the achievements of the heaven ly Tao, not human effort. Since they are the achievements of heaven rather than humans, the sage king should not claim this great merit. Because he does not claim credit, his achievements endure. Precise ly because the sage king does not seize the merit of the heaven ly Tao or claim the great position because of it, the people will respect their monarch more. The world will be permanently peaceful, and the people's lives will be permanently happy and prosperous. The heaven ly Tao nourishes all things without possessing them, prospers all things without relying on them, and never claims credit for the results of all things evolution or occupies them. Precise ly because the heaven ly Tao never occupies all things because it gave birth to them. There is never a rift between all things and the heaven ly Tao, and everything can circulate endless ly. Should and the sage king govern the state and educate the people in the same way, excessive cleverness and pursuit are precise ly the root causes of us losing our true selves and moving away from the great Tao. Hello everyone. Welcome back to Tao Academy. Today we will learn chapter 30 of the Tao Te Ching together. Without much foreshadowing, Lao Tzu opens with 6 bu, not characters, as if issuing a profound warning to the world. He said, "Do not exalt the virtuous, so that the people will not compete. Do not value rare goods, so that the people will not steal. Do not display desirable things, so that the people's shares will not be disturbed." These seeming ly simple truths are like sharp swords, directly pointing to the human heart. But unfortunately, these same ideas have been interpreted by countless people in history as a passive philosophy, and even condemned Lao Tzu for teaching people to avoid reality like flat and muddle along. Lao Tzu is really wrong at. But there is a remarkable person who believes that Lao Tzu is not wrong at all. Moreover, he even openly put forward an idea completely opposite to Lao Tzu as "do not exalt the virtuous." This person is Mozi, and this idea is the Maoist advocacy of exalting the virtuous. To further clarify this point and deeply understand the true meaning of Lao Tzu as "do not exalt the virtuous, so that the people will not compete," let's invite 2 great figures to have a cross-temporal debate. Imagine, on a sunny afternoon in the outskirts forest 2,000 years ago, Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, and Mozi, the leader of Maoism, met. Lao Tzu looked at Mozi and said, "I hear you travel around advocating the way of exalting the virtuous, believing that this can bring peace to the world. But Ito you, this is precise ly the root cause of the world's chaos." Mozi replied, "Mr. Lao Tzu, you are mistaken. Exalting the virtuous is to let virtuous and talented people receive the respect and status they deserve. Select virtuous people to govern the world. and thus guide the social atmosphere towards goodness. How can you say this is the root cause of the world's chaos? Laozi said coldly, ridiculous. The sage king governs the world according to the heaven Ly Tao, and the people lie naturally. This is heaven governing humans, not humans governing humans. When the world follows the Tao, there is no distinction between noble and humble. Everyone can live their own life. Your distinction between virtuous and foolish, according to the human Tao, only fosters people's desire to compare and compete. Look at those who stop at nothing to compete for the reputational being virtuous. This is the result of your exalting the virtuous. Mozi turned to look at the depths of the forest and said, living according to the heaven Ly Tao like animals in nature is only your beautiful wish. Heaven and humans have long been separated. Rituals have collapsed and morality has declined. If we do not promote virtuous and talented people to govern the world will surely fall into great chaos. Laozi laughed loudly. Is it not chaotic enough now? Your so-called virtue is nothing but a tool for people to satisfy their vanity. A true virtuous person should be someone who does not compete and follows nature. Your way of exalting the virtuous will only make people move further away from the true Tao. Mozi said, you are too passive. If people all do not compete as you say, how can society progress? I advocate exalting the virtuous precise Ly to stimulate people's motivation and creativity, promoting continuous social development. Laozi looked at Mozi deeply, sighed and said, what social progress? It is nothing but the prosperity in people say yes. Your so-called progress only makes people more blind and anxious. The heaven Ly Tao is based on emptiness. The human Tao is based on things. Heaven Ly Tao is based on non-being. The human Tao is based on being. If we establish the way of the human Tao, then everyone in the world will take action as a means, things as a tool, more as beauty, and more gain as wealth. Inevitably, those who cannot obtain what they desire will compete. Competition leads to conflict, and conflict leads to chaos. On the contrary, true progress should be following the heaven Ly Tao naturally, having few desires, everyone living in peace of mind, and being calm and peaceful. But your way of exalting the virtuous will only make people lose their inner peace and fall into endless disputes. Mozi did not reply, only softly said, everyone having few desires is too unrealistic, and turned to leave. Regarding governing the world, Laozi's solution is to abandon the human Tao, return to the heavenly Tao, engage in non-action, and practice teaching without words. Wu Wei. Governance is by no means what many people think, governing the world by doing nothing. Instead, it is a more demanding and difficult way of governance. Because as Mozi said, heaven and humans have long been separated. Humans and the Tao are drifting further apart, and the world has long been in a state of ritual collapse and moral decline. How can we return to the simple and innocent nature? Thus Laozi then put forward specific strategies. Do not value rare goods, so that the people will not steal. The character Deo, steal, here was originally written with 3 dots of water on top, which was later simplified to 2 dots, making the upper part the same as U, J, and the lower part mean people. Zhou Gong said, stealing benefits is theft, coveting goods is theft, hence the saying, desire is an insatiable pit. If in a society, the monarch does not value virtue, but values rare things such as jade and silk, then those above set an example, and those below follow suit. Everyone values rare things, and desires are constantly amplified. When the capacity of the heart is filled with endless desires, it is like being controlled by a thief, constantly filling one's selfish vessel with things, yet people are completely unaware that They are puppets manipulated by desires. What consequences will this lead to? Let's find the answer from the following story. During the Western Jin dynasty, there was an official named Shi Chong. His mansion was decorated residential plan Dandawai, like a fairyland on earth. His banquet utensils were all exquisite Ly carved and invaluable. It was said that he even used candles as firewood to cook. This level of luxury was unprecedented. When another official named Wan Kai learned of this, he believed that Shi Chong had challenged his status as the richest man, so he refused to be outdone. He also collected various rare treasures to decorate his mansion and banquets. However, compared with Shi Chong, he always seemed as slightly inferior. When Emperor Wu of Jin learned of this, instead of stopping it, he even joined in personally to help Wan Kai win the competition. He specially gave him a priceless coral tree. Wan Kai proudly took this coral tree to Shi Chong's house to show off. However, Shi Chong dismissed it, casually picked up an iron rui, a ceremonial scepter, and smashed the coral tree to pieces. Then he ordered his servants to bring out several more precious and taller coral trees from his house as compensation to Wan Kai. As a monarch, Emperor Wu indulged at his ministers endless desire for rare goods, encouraging their vanity and greed. Those above set an example, and those below followed suit. The entire social atmosphere gradually moved towards extravagance and comparison. Rare goods not only made people's shares impetuous and desires overflow, but also accelerated the demise of the Western Jin dynasty. Since valuing rare goods will lead to bad customs such as people stealing, how can we avoid such things? Laozi believed, do not display desirable things, so that the people's shares will not be disturbed. That is, conceal or eliminate things that can arouse people's desires and pursuit, and people's shares will gradually return to peace. It does not mean prohibiting people as normal desires in line with the heaven of Tao, such as eating, sleeping, working, and having children. Instead, it means eliminating or isolating objects that can arouse abnormal desires. Yu, what is abnormal desire? Desires initiated by heaven are normal desires. Yu, desires initiated by humans are abnormal desires. Yu, Laozi opposed not desires themselves, but abnormal desires that are not in line with the heaven of Tao. Abnormal desires arise from improper intentions and lead to deviant behavior. When normal desires arise, people remain simple. When abnormal desires arise, people's shares become improper. Impropriety leads to chaos. Well, now the key point. These words are like celestial secrets, applicable not only to governing the state but also to self-cultivation and spiritual practice. Laozi then said, therefore the sage governs by emptying the people's minds, filling their bellies, weakening their ambitions, and strengthening their bones. The first three sentences are all negative, telling us what not to do. What is the reasonable way to do it? This sentence gives specific and positive methods of governing the state. The empty the mind here does not simply mean humility, and fill the belly does not simply mean having enough to eat. The true connotation of this sentence is to make people return to their original simplicity. Returning to original simplicity is not fooling the people, but pulling people out of artificial constraints and restoring their pure and true nature. Some people may say, the society is so impetuous. How can we restore pure and true nature? In fact, the answer is also in this sentence, but most people do not understand it. Let's try to uncover the hidden meaning of this sentence from the perspective of health preservation. Empty the mind is not its colloquial meaning, but refers to reducing heart fire and restoring Peace to the mind. Inside the human body, heart fire and kidney water are interdependent, joint ally maintaining the balance of life. Empty, ing the mind is to guide the descent, a heart fire to blend with kidney water, thus achieving a harmonious state of Kenli circulation. When kidney water is abundant, the abdomen will naturally feel satisfied and peaceful. This is the meaning of fill the belly. Strengthen the bones does not simply mean strengthening the bones, but refers to the abundance and nourishment of bone marrow. When kidney water is abundant, the bone marrow is nourished, and peoples will become firm and strong. However, excessive ambition will consume the essence in the bone marrow, leading to physical weakness, hence weakening ambitions to strengthen bones. When the sage king governs the world and advocates people returning to their original simplicity, people will be healthy, long-lived, and mentally peaceful. Thus the entire society will be clear and peaceful. On the contrary, if filling the mind and empty ing the belly, strengthening ambitions and weakening bones, the society will become what was described in the previous sentences: a fanatical money-worshipping society, a corrupt society of theft and immorality, a society where people's shares are in chaos and people are manipulated by traitors. Therefore, Laozi said, always keep the people without knowledge and desires, so that the wise dare not act. It is precise why this sentence that made many people criticize Laozi in history, believing that he advocated a policy of fooling the people. This is a great misunderstanding of Laozi's words. The without knowledge here means that the sage king prevents the people from knowing the heresies of the human Tao. Without desires refers to eliminating abnormal desires of the human Tao beyond people's normal desires. As long as the people are without knowledge and desires and adhere to heaven without deviation, even if there are those who like to promote the human Tao and attempt to deceive the people with deviant heresies, they will not dare to act arbitrarily because they know they cannot succeed. At the end of chapter 3, Laozi summarizes with a sentence: acting through non-action, there is nothing ungoverned. Action is the subsequent behavior of desire. What kind of desire leads to what kind of action? Without desire, there is non-action. With desire, there is action. In this chapter, Laozi opposes excessive desires, such as exalting the virtuous and valuing rare goods. These are beyond the needs of normal survival and life. Free ing the people from these unnecessary and harmful excessive desires, allowing them to live a happy, simple, natural and healthy life. Then even if the sage does nothing, the people can live freely and happily. This is the true meaning of Wu-Wei governance. On a morning 400 years ago, the great master Zhang Sanfeng was immersed in the tranquility of Jingtai viewed in Baoji. Suddenly, a purple chi slowly rose from the east, and floating dust loomed in the morning light. Zhang Sanfeng felt a strong spiritual light emerging from the bottom of his heart, and his consciousness seemed to be pulled by this force into an unprecedented realm. At that moment, he was shocked to discover that Laozi has blended its light, harmonized its dust, is not only the profound principle of the Tao generating all things, destroying them, and the cycle of life and death, without true birth or death, but also hides a mysterious shortcut to making the heart open-minded and united with the great Tao. It was this discovery that helped him reach the peak of alchemy practice. Even more astonishing are why, thousands of years later, modern scientists actually gained inspiration for exploring cosmic black hole phenomena from Laozi's this principle. But unfortunate are why, most people cannot understand this chapter at all. They can only simply interpret it as a worldwide tactic of smooth interpersonal relations, which is really regrettable. So, what cosmic truths and life realms does this chapter contain? Let's first look at the original text. The Tao is empty, yet when used, it is not exhausted, profound. It is like the end store of all things. Blunt its sharpness, resolve its tangles, blend its light, harmonize its dust clear. It seems to exist yet not. Ye do not know who sung it, as it appears before the supreme end store. Entire text has only 42 characters. The first 2 sentences talk about the Tao generating all things, and the last 2 sentences talk about the Tao transforming all things. In just a few words, its connotation is breathtaking. The first sentence, the Tao is empty, yet when used, it is not exhausted. What does the character chung, empty, mean here? From chapter 45, great fullness seems empty. We know that chung is opposite to yin, full, meaning emptiness. Emptiness here represents the essence of the Tao. The whole sentence means the Tao emerges from emptiness and creates all things with what it emanates. It emanates endless ly without beginning or end. Yet heaven and earth are never filled. Profound. It is like the end store of all things. This sentence follows the previous one, describing the scene of the Tao emanating all things. According to the annotation in Shuo 1, GSE, explaining simple end, analyzing compound characters, Yuan, profound, means returning water, i.e., an eddy or whirlpool, we often say. This deep end, rotating water phenomenon is surprising ly, similar to distant galaxies. Incredibly, without astronomical telescopes in ancient times, our ancestor Lao Zi had already insightfully realized that the formation of galaxies is like a larger-scale whirlpool deep end, rotating. And above this larger scale, there are even more massive structures. Whether galaxies or other cosmic structures, they are all like whirlpools, deep and rotating. The Tao is the deep end, rotating source. It seems silent, yet contains endless energy. All things emanate from it. It is like the engine of the universe, promoting the process of all life silently but powerfully. But there are 2 questions here. First, why say all things are born from emptiness? Second, why does the Tao emanate endless ly, without filling heaven and earth? Let's answer the first question first. Although we cannot directly prove it, from the perspective of the Tao, we can infer the mystery of Wu, non-being, generating all things by observing our own body and mind as well as the external world, following the principle of I Ching, drawing near to take examples from oneself, drawing far to take examples from things, to create the 8 triad AMS. Next, let's try to enter Zhuan Zs, state of Xian heart fasting, and truly feel how nothingness generates, being at the stage of listening with Qi. We will only do 1 step of experience. Let us start now. Sit upright with eyes closed. Relax your body and mind. Stop all thinking activities. Focus all your attention on breathing, and listen to the natural sound of breathing through your nose with your heart. At this moment, your mind returns to peace, and all thoughts vanish. But soon you will clearly observe that thoughts arise from nothingness and disappear into nothingness, yet nothingness remains unchanged and omnipresent. It is the same with a single thought as with the body. The human body originates from the combination of parents' essence and blood, from nothingness to being, from small to large, experiencing birth, aging, illness and death, and finally turning into dust. The body originally comes from heaven and earth, and will eventually return to heaven and earth. Furthermore, humans can be regarded as a thought nurtured by heaven and earth. If heaven and earth are compared to a living being, then heaven and earth are nothing but a thought, generated by the empty great Tao. Similarly, all things can serve as evidence. Kuan Zi said, Qi gathers to generate life, and Qi disperses to cause death. All things are essentially the aggregation of yin and yang qi. Yin and yang qi originate from the primal qi of Tai Chi, and Tai Chi comes from Wu Ji. Ultimately, Wu Ji is nothingness. The essence of all things is nothingness, and the only constant is nothingness. This empty Tao, though formless and shapeless, is inexhaustible and ever abundant. All things arise from it. It is the end store of all things. The second question: why does the Tao emanate endless Ly without filling heaven and earth? The answer lies in the next sentence. Blunt its sharpness, resolve its tangles, blend its light, harmonize its dust. This is also the core sentence of this chapter. Historically, there are three completely different dimensions for interpreting this sentence: human Tao, heavenly Tao, and alchemy. The secret to uniting with the great Tao mentioned earlier is hidden in the alchemical interpretation. We will talk about it later. First, let's look at the first dimension, interpreting from the perspective of human Tao. Ru Yi, sharpness, refers to aggressive behaviors and frivolous emotions. Fen, tangles, refers to complicated and fragmented things and consciousness. Chen, dust, refers to the phenomenal world as opposed to the essential world. Roaming in the wonderful realm of the Tao, realizing the true meaning of life, and gaining great wisdom. The former arrogant sharpness and frivolous emotions are reawakened. All unnecessary tangles are resolved. Abandon the aggressive and outward-looking mindset. Adopt a modest and non-competitive attitude towards life. View the beauty and ugliness, good and evil, honor and disgrace, noble and humble in the world from the perspective of the Tao. Such a person is awake and enlightened. This seems plausible, but it cannot answer the question of why the Tao emanates endless Ly without filling heaven and earth. However, if we interpret this sentence from the perspective of the heaven Ly Tao, this question is easily understood. All things are born from nothingness and will return to nothingness. Thus, the Tao itself is a perfect system of generation and destruction. Ru Yi, sharpness, belongs to yang and manifests as light. Fan, tangles, belongs to yin and manifests as dust. Blunt its sharpness means the Tao can weaken and destroy the sharpness of all things, like a bright star that eventually fades after radiating energy for a long time. This process is the embodiment of blunt its sharpness. Resolve its tangles means the Tao can resolve the complexity of all things when energy is exhausted. The organizational structure of the star collapses, leaving only pieces of interstellar dust. Blend its light means the Tao is the driving force behind the radiance of all things. When all things shine, the Tao is within them, shining together with them. The Tao is the source of energy radiation for all things and the fountain of their vitality. Harmonize its dust means when all things disintegrate into ruins and dust, they return to the Tao, like a whirlpool absorbs all things, waiting for the next emanation. At this point, the answer is very clear. Why does the Tao emanate endless Ly without filling the universe? The Tao Te Ching says the Tao emanates all things endless Ly, while simultaneous Ly destroying them and recycling them, circulating repeated Ly. Therefore, although the Tao emanates all things endless Ly without beginning or end, the universe is never filled. Amazingly, Lao Tzu's thought is surprising Ly consistent with the black hole phenomenon discovered by modern scientists thousands of years later. Black holes devour everything. Even light cannot escape their powerful gravitational pull. This is exactly what Lao Tzu meant by blunt its sharpness. Any form of sharpness is ruthless Ly destroyed in the face of black holes, and any object is deprived of its original light and sharpness. At the same time, the internal state of a black hole is extremely complex and chaotic. But this complexity and chaos present a wonderful harmony and unity at the black hole seventh horizon. This is like Laozi as resolve. Its tangles. Under the action of the Tao, complex things will eventually find an inherent harmony and balance. Even more amazing, black holes are not completely closed systems. According to Hawking's radiation theory, black holes can emit radiation. This radiation is like a way for black holes to communicate with other parts of the universe, which is consistent with Laozi as blend its light. Finally, when the black hole reaches the end of its life, it will return to the universe in an extreme way, releasing enormous energy. This is like Laozi as harmonize its dust. In the cycle of the Tao, all things eventually return to their original starting point, uniting with the Tao as one. At this point, aren't Tao convinced by Laozi's profound thought that transcends time and space? The third interpretation, from the perspective of alchemy here, we can only give a brief hint and cannot elaborate further. Blunt its sharpness, resolve its tangles, blend its light, harmonize its dust describes not only the process of all things perishing but also the process of self-annihilation in spiritual practice, corresponding to the four levels of practice: Zinzai, hard fasting, listening with ears, listening with mind, listening with qi, and uniting with the Tao. Later practitioners of health preservation called this refining essence into qi, refining qi into spirit, refining spirit into emptiness, and refining emptiness into the Tao. That's all we can say, otherwise it will be restricted by the platform. Clear. It seems to exist yet not. Zhang, clear, originally means clear and transparent looking, as if there is nothing. The Tao is such an existence, formless and shapeless, seemingly empty in our sight, yet it seems to be operating endlessly, promoting the changes of all things. The last sentence, ye do not know whose son it is. It appears before the Supreme and Store. Ye do not know who created this boundless and silent empty Tao. It seems to have existed before the Creator, Supreme Ancestor. It is there that we see the source of life, and thus life has Alma. It turns out that life originates from the Tao and never leaves it. The doctrine of the mean says, the Tao is something that cannot be separated from for a moment. What can be separated from is not the Tao. Essence of life is the Tao. So if humans can be empty and peaceful, open-minded and united with the Tao, the body and mind will naturally be harmonious, and life will naturally be nourished. Everything is the work of the Tao, though phenomena are born and die. The nature is neither born nor destroyed, acting naturally without effort. Does heaven truly have compassion for all living beings? Will God pity the pitiful? Humans are always full of fantasies and expectations for higher dimensional forces, but reality is often cruel and indifferent. Opening sentence of chapter 5 of the Tao Te Ching says, heaven and earth are impartial. They treat all things as straw dogs. The words are blunt, but this is the truth. The character Ren, benevolent, here means affectionate. Zhugo, straw dogs, refers to dog-shaped straw figures tied with weeds, carefully decorated and displayed in temples for sacrifice. After the sacrifice, these straw dogs are discarded, trampled, and abandoned. Laozi uses this phenomenon to metaphorize heaven and earth. They nurture all things and let them flourish, yet ultimately let them wither and die. When all things are vibrant and in their prime, heaven and earth nourish them with rain and dew, treating them like carefully made straw dogs during sacrifice, cherished and endowed with vitality. However, once all things wither, decay and rot, heaven and earth seem to abandon them like worthless things, just like straw dogs after sacrifice, casually discarded and left to fend for themselves. Therefore, Some people may accuse heaven and earth of being ruthless, calling them unbenevolent. But in Lao Tzu's view, heaven and earth do not possess the Confucian concept of benevolence at all. Heaven and earth only create all things. Destroy them, create them again. Destroy them again, circulating. Endless ly without stopping. Thus, heaven and earth have neither a compassionate heart nor a cruel heart because they have no heart at all. Precise ly because heaven and earth are emotionless and ungrateful. They can nurture all things impartially, transform them and nourish them. But people are always too conceited, believing that various gods and strange, anthropomorphic beings favor humans, and even delude themselves into thinking that they can gain special care through their piety and offerings is ridiculous. In fact, heaven and earth have no emotions or preferences. They always operate according to natural laws. Whether humans or other creatures, those who conform to the operation of the Tao will thrive. Those who go against the Tao will perish. If Lao Tzu's first sentence is relatively easy to understand, then the second sentence, the sage is impartial. He treats the people as straw dogs, has offended many people in history and been misunderstood by many who think the sage is unfeeling. Should the sage govern for the people, putting humans first? Lao Tzu believed that the sage king governing the world should imitate heaven and earth governing all things. Since heaven and earth are based on the Tao, not on things, and treat all things as straw dogs, they can avoid harming the Tao and bestow great grace on all things. Similarly, the sage is based on heaven, not on human emotions, and treats the people as straw dogs, thus he can avoid losing heaven and bestow great grace on the people of the world. This kind of ungratefulness and lack of affection is the true great grace and affection. Because if there is a deliberate, compassionate heart, there will inevitably be more love for some and less for others, leading to partiality. Heaven and earth have no favor for all things. They have neither a compassionate heart nor a cruel heart, only operating according to the Tao. Similarly, when the sage governs the world, he should treat the people in the same way without a compassionate heart or a cruel heart, only governing according to the Tao. In this process, he treats the people like straw dogs, without special emotional tendencies. Many people believe that the Taoist concept of wu-wei governance is a benevolent government, a governance philosophy that benefits all things and harms no one. But Lao Tzu's these two sentences directly indicate that this is not the case. Sage king governs the world based on heaven. Heaven gives life and takes life, which is the principle of the Tao. Let life be born when it should be born, and die when it should die. Everything follows heaven, not humans. This is not unfeeling, but pursuing a higher realm of grace. They must abandon worldly prejudices and emotions, follow the heavenly Tao, and treat the people equally so as to achieve the great impartiality of heaven and earth, allowing all things in the world to share the grace of the heavenly Tao. This is the core concept of sage king governance in ancient Chinese philosophy. As Huan Di in Fu Jing, the Yellow Emperor's hidden tally scripture, says, heaven has no grace yet bestows great grace. Thunder and strong winds all things stir. Sun, lei, thunder, refers to spring thunder. Laifeng, strong winds, refers to the east wind of spring. Heaven ly young energy rises, and warm spring arrives. Spring, thunder and east winds surge violently, with no intention of favoring all things, yet all things stir, and a new round of life begins to germinate and grow, as if receiving great grace from heaven to gain life. In this process, all things are treated equally, with no partiality. Why is this so? Next, Lao Tzu uses the most common example to reveal the basic principle of cosmic operation. Heaven and earth are like a balance, empty yet not exhausted, moving yet producing more. Lao Tzu compares heaven and earth to a huge balance. The inside of this balance is empty yet never exhausted. Between pushing and pulling, inhaling and exhaling, there is the rhythm of life, and all things circulate endless, away in birth and death. Furthermore, Lao Tzu hides a very important secret here. Later, practitioners of spiritual practice discovered, when interpreting this sentence of the Tao Te Ching, that the human body can also be regarded as a small balance. Inhaling and exhaling are the pushing and pulling of the balance, and the flow of breath is like the air flowed in the tool, endless and unceasing. This concept has had a profound impact on China's cultivation culture, believing that the breath inside the human body resonates with the breath in the universe. Through regulating breath and practicing qi, one can achieve longevity and even the state of uniting with the Tao. But this balance has 6 holes or 6 sense faculties: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. When these 6 sense faculties interact with the outside world, primordial qi leaks out. If primordial qi is exhausted, life comes to an end. This is the law of nature. Therefore, the key to self-cultivation and preserving life lies in learning to restrain oneself and let the 6 sense faculties return to their proper places. When the eyes do not covet seeing, the soul resides in the liver. When the ears do not covet hearing, essence resides in the kidneys. When the nose does not covet smelling, Po resides in the lungs. When the mouth does not covet speaking, spirit resides in the heart. When the body does not covet movement, intention resides in the spleen. In this way, essence is transformed into primordial qi into spiritual energy, and finally spiritual energy returns to nothing, thus achieving the state of self-cultivation and preserving life. However, in real life people often find it difficult to understand this truth, always cling to the pursuit of material wealth, fame and status, even resorting to scrupulous means to achieve their goals. They indulge in the mire of desires, lost in the vortex of interests, unable to extricate themselves. So how can we solve this problem? Lao Tzu gives the answer in the last sentence of chapter 5. Much talk leads to exhaustion. Better to keep to the mean here. Much refers to the complexity of all things.
Please subscribe.